Hey everyone, Robert Faringo with Doc Sports Services here to talk a little midweek NBA basketball with our hump day hero, Nolan Patrick of Strike Point Sports. Remember, you can find my NBA plays and Strike Point Sports NBA plays, along with 10 of the other top NBA handicappers in the country at www.docsports.com. That's www.docsports.com. As I've mentioned, we at Doc Sports are celebrating our 50-year anniversary this year, and you can celebrate along with us by banging on that link down in the description and going to our website and picking up $60 free to use towards any package for any handicapper in any sport that you want. So, all right, Nolan, one of the teams that we talked about last week in this segment was the Atlanta Hawks, and we both proceeded to rip on the Hawks. Me in particular, and I then infected them with my superpower. Do you want to explain to our viewers and our listeners what my gambling superpower is?
Yes, the kiss of life. The kiss of life. It's the exact opposite of what most people have. Most people have the kiss of death. You know, you hear it all the time in a football game when the announcer says so on and so forth, hasn't missed a field goal in 12 games, and then they absolutely miss the very next field goal. But you have this mystical power that as soon as you say somebody is no good or some team is no good, and I can't just say you because I made the same mistake with the New Orleans Pelicans saying that they stink, and then they proceeded to score 144 points in their next game. But yes, you have the kiss of life. You just infect other teams when you say they're bad, and then miraculously they're fantastic.
It's truly amazing, and you've seen this over years and over across all sports. It truly is a gambling superpower. Now, all right, we talked about the Hawks a little bit last week. This week, Wednesday night, they are hosting Boston. Now, these two teams just played a two-game set, which they split last weekend up in Boston. What do you see when you're looking at these two teams? They both come in here a little bit shaky.
They really do. Boston is a very interesting team. They've been hit really bad by injuries. They had to deal with a COVID outbreak for a while. The Celtics are 15-15 straight up and 15-15 against the spread. Really interesting stat. And the Celtics also have not covered back-to-back games since the end of January, beginning of February. So this is the definition of an up and down team. And when the two teams played, last week, Atlanta got a big game by Trae Young. He scored 40 points in an 8-point win. And then the very next game, Boston had a 25-point lead at halftime and kind of coasted in that game. I think in this game, you're going to see a lot closer to the first time they played. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Hawks are going to need a big game out of Trae Young, and he's going to have a supporting cast. Clint Capella is going to have a big game. And then, DeAndre Hunter and guys like that are going to have to play well for the Hawks. So I see it being a lot closer, similar to the way it was the first time the teams played.
So both of these teams play Tuesday night. All right. So we don't have a number yet on this game. Where do you expect the number to come in at, and who do you expect to be favored?
I think the Hawks are going to be favored. I really do. Even though the Hawks are under 500, I believe they're 4 games under 500. I think it does, we have to see what happens on Tuesday night, but I think you're going to see the Hawks as a small favorite over the Celtics in that game. And I lean the Hawks there. I really do.
Yeah, they're 6-2 against the spread in their last 8 games as a favorite. However, Boston has absolutely dominated this series. Other than that one win that Atlanta had last Friday night, I believe it was, Boston has won 8 straight against Atlanta, 8 other games. They're 8-1 straight up against the Hawks in the last 9 meetings. Now, both of those teams, as we mentioned, play Tuesday night. Atlanta's in Cleveland, Boston's in Dallas. So they're both on the road, both have to travel to Atlanta. Do you think that that's going to impact the total at all?
It's interesting because I actually wrote that down, and I think that the total is going to be right about where it was before. The Celtics are the type of team, and I just looked this up, the Celtics are the type of team when if they give up 116 points or more, they lose. Plain and simple. When they give up 116 points or more, they don't win the basketball game. And I see the Hawks getting that number. I really do. So I think the Hawks are going to win that basketball game, regardless of the track record that the Celtics have over the Hawks. I think the Hawks are going to be able to score on the Celtics, and I see them winning that basketball game.
Yeah, another thing to
And
consider with the total is that both teams playing the night before, both teams have to travel. You might have some tired legs. Now, kind of a rookie mistake in handicapping is for people to look at that and to think under. I think that these teams aren't going to have the energy to score, so maybe they're looking at the under of that game. Anyone that's ever played basketball before in their life knows you always have energy for offense, okay? If you have tired legs, that will hurt you on the defensive side of the court, okay? You always find energy when your team has the ball. But if both of these teams do come into this game a little bit tired or a little bit worn out from their Tuesday night games, I think that will hurt them defensively, and that could, to your point, lead to an over. Now, the next game I want to talk about is Toronto against Miami. We got two teams that are heating up a little bit. Both got off to really terrible starts to the season, but they're both hot coming into this game. Toronto is 6-2 straight up and against the spread in their last 8 games. They have won and covered 4 straight games going into Tuesday night's game against Philadelphia. Miami has won and covered 3 straight games, and they're 7-3 straight up in their last 10. Both of these teams are trending upwards. What are you looking at in this matchup?
I really like that game. And to be honest, we were all over the Raptors the other day against Philadelphia. It's something we talked about in our previous video where the 76ers don't travel well. So we really like the Raptors at home in that game. And we're leaning the Raptors, in the next game with Philadelphia, like you said tonight. With that specific game with Toronto and Miami, it's funny that you just talked about in the previous game that you lean under, or people will tend to lean under when teams are coming in off back-to-back. Both of these teams are going to be playing 3 games in 4 nights, and that will have tired legs when these two teams play. Last time these two teams played, I believe the total was 220, 222. I see that total being a little bit lower in this game. I see that being about 216, 217. And in that specific game, trying to pick a side there, I think, is a very, very difficult task. If I had to, I may lean Toronto in that game, but I think I'm going to be looking at the under there.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be a pass on the side for me. As much as I love the way both of these teams are playing, they match up pretty well. Toronto is just 5-13 against the spread at home, so they kind of lose that home court edge there. And like you said, 3 games in 4 nights for both of these teams. I'm with you looking at the total rather than the side. Now, another team that we harped on last week was the Utah Jazz, and they remain a godless killing machine. Now, they finally lost the game in Los Angeles after beating the Clippers in the first game of that set. Lose to the Clippers, then they come home and they bomb Charlotte. In a game that Charlotte was hanging around for like 3.5 quarters, Utah hit 28 three-pointers in that game Monday night. Now they're at home, and because these teams aren't playing Tuesday night, there's already a number on this game. Utah is an 8.5-point home favorite over the Lakers. Are you kind of surprised at that number, or does that sound about right to you?
It actually sounds about right. It really does. I had this game earlier today. I had this game pegged at about 7 points. And it's funny, in my notes that I had, I talked about how the Jazz should be more than a 2-possession favorite in this basketball game. The Lakers just have not looked good. They really haven't. They do not have the horses to stay with Utah. And we talked last week about that's what Utah does. Teams might hang around for a little while, but in the end, the Jazz are just such a strong team. They pull away in the end. I believe that they're 23-8 on the season against the spread. And I think Vegas is finally starting to realize that they need to start laying some bigger lines. In that Charlotte game, I believe the Jazz were 12.5-point favorites there, and now 8.5 points over the Lakers. And how do you not take the Jazz? The Lakers are going to match up poorly with Utah in this game. And like you just said, the way the Jazz and the Clippers finished that little 2-game set, the Jazz beat them when the Clippers were undermanned. But then when PG-13 and Kawhi Leonard were there, the Clippers win that basketball game, and they kept the Jazz at arm's length the entire game. They really did. So the Jazz are going to want to make a statement here. They want people to know that they're the best team in the West. They just lost to the Clippers. They don't want to take a chance of losing to the Lakers. I think the Jazz win this game by double figures.
Okay, the Jazz 12-1 against the spread in their last 13 games as a home favorite. 13-3 against the spread in their last 16 games at home overall. Just to play devil's advocate for a second here with you. Is this possibly a good buy low situation for the Lakers? Now, they looked awful on Thursday night in that marquee game against the Nets. They really got run off the court. Then they turn around and they lose to a bad Washington team in overtime at home. Everyone is selling their Lakers stock right now. However, the Lakers are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games in Utah. They're one of the rare Western Conference teams that play well in Salt Lake City. They're 5-0 against the last 5 against Utah. They're 16-5 spread in their last 21 games as an underdog. Again, is this a potential kind of surprise spot for the Lakers to show up, give a good effort against a red-hot Utah team and make this one a game? Or is it Utah or nothing?
Let me think. No. Nope. Jazz. Jazz. This is the second time that the Lakers will be an underdog this year. As you said, they have a great track record as an underdog play. They were a small favorite, maybe 1.5 point favorite to the Milwaukee Bucks early, or I'm sorry, 1.5 point underdog to the Milwaukee Bucks earlier this year. It was the only other time this season that they've been posted as an underdog, and they beat the Bucks outright in that game, 113-106, something like that. So this is the second time that they're going to be an underdog like this, but goodness gracious, can you ever remember when LeBron James was getting 8.5 points? There is a reason for that.
It's going to be interesting to see if he even plays, to be completely honest with you. They might know that this one is going to be a whitewash, so they may just decide that this is an unscheduled rest day for him. I'm also interested to see how the betting numbers are going to work in this game, the betting percentages. Is the public going to jump on the Lakers getting that many points? Is that a little bit too enticing for a lot of square bettors and a lot of square action? Or are the overwhelming majority of the bets going to come in on this game at Utah? Is that going to push the number up? That's one of those ones that kind of the game within the game from a handicapper's perspective. I'm really going to be interested to see what those numbers do. All right, Nolan, we can't let you out of here without giving away a free play. We talked about these 3 games. Give the people what they want. Give them a free play for Wednesday night.
Free play. I mean, I've given you a lean in each one of the games so far, pretty much shown my card, so to speak, on who I'm going to take. And if you want to make an easy play, call your local bookie, go to your local casino where you can place your bets and say, give me
we're not advocating local bookies. That would be illegal. We're not going to do that. How people bet is their own business. This is strictly for entertainment purposes.
That's right. I mean, if you want to make it easy, go ahead and go on the Utah Jazz. But specifically, the one that I think that I like the best out of these 3 games, and we talked about it just a little bit, is the under in that Toronto and Miami game. I think you're going to see these 2 teams kind of muck it up and play just a dirty, grimy type basketball game. 2 teams that are playing well, 2 teams that aren't going to want to give this game away. I think this one falls really short of the posted total. Like I said, I think it's going to be around 215, 216, 217, and I like under in that basketball game.
All right, that's it, folks. He is Nolan Patrick with Strike Point Sports. I am Robert Faringo. Find us both at www.docsports.com. Be sure to check back next week for more midweek NBA action. In the meantime, carpe diem and good luck.